And we've got a special treat here today for you. We've got Rick and Diana Wilson. They're currently streaming from Kenya. So, why don't you two introduce yourself very briefly?
So I'm Rick Wilson,
And I'm Diana Wilson.
and we have been missionaries with WorldVenture for 30 plus years. We're retired but still working and doing some stuff around the world underneath the umbrella of WorldVenture.
Awesome. All right. So, tell me about what is you're in Kenya, and it looks a little bit sunny, maybe mostly cloudy right there. What is
Yeah, it's
your
kind of sunny,
yeah?
cloudy.
What is your favorite place to visit when you're in Kenya?
We're we're here.
Yeah, we're here at our campus, which we have the school and the apartment down that way, and we have our school from preschool to eighth grade over here to the right, and then behind you guys is our church. So our favorite place to be in Kenya is right where we're sitting.
So, there's no favorite restaurants or a place to go visit or
We've eaten at some restaurants and stuff, but honestly, and we've gone through like the Masai Mara. We've been to Mount Kilimanjaro, but on it, really, it's more comfortable here. It's up in the mountains. The temperature is great. It's beautiful behind us. So basically, whenever we were here, we spent most of our time here. We didn't travel around.
awesome. Hey, can you show us what the surrounding by moving your camera around? Is that possible without losing signal?
Sure, I you can.
Yeah.
I can. So can you see it like this?
Yep, I can see it.
And so you can see that's one part of the school down there for younger kids, and then there's another part here. But see the mountainside over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no buildings on that when I first came here. And then we have around this way, we're doing some construction, but there's the church.
Nice.
And so just, I don't know if I'm turning too
Nope,
fast,
you're
but
doing
that's
great.
what it looks like.
You're doing great.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, and Kenya is beautiful. And there probably is a restaurant, but
Well, what we enjoy doing about maybe once a week or twice a week while we're here, we stop at the Java House on the way home. And Nikki, you would like that because it's a coffee house.
it's a
Yes.
coffee house.
And so we love getting their coffee and just kind of regrouping after being here all day working. Like this trip, we're doing a basketball court and we're putting a fence around 4 acres of our property, and then we're painting. I wish you could see the wall that we're painting. It's absolutely, maybe if we have time at the
I'm
end.
doing Vacation Bible
Yeah.
School.
So it's fun to stop by the Java House and just kind of regroup and have a coffee.
Awesome. Yeah.
And also working with the pastor on his sermons and different things like that. So
Nice. Nice.
yeah, it's been nice.
So we're gonna get a little bit personal about your story. So how did you two become believers? I know we're going a little farther back, but
Yeah, well, you know what? I became a believer uh, mainly through a church in Pueblo, Colorado. It was a BBF church, Bible Baptist Fellowship. I wasn't raised in the church, and even though I got saved there, I never really continued going to the church. But I got saved in that church, and basically in a Sunday school class. And there's lots of reasons behind it, but it's such a long story. I'm cutting down a little bit. But in a Sunday school class where the girl that was teaching it just presented the message, and I had never really heard about it, and so it sounded great to me, and I raised my hand and received Christ, and then really didn't put it all together until probably 18 and a half, 19 years old, until I decided that, hey, listen, I know there's something different about me, so I'm going to start trying to follow Jesus. And so then started reading the Bible, and just that's how I started to grow after that point.
And then for me, it was actually in the same church, but it was a couple years later, and I was 11, and I never got to sit with my friends in church, but that one Sunday night, I was allowed to, and I actually listened to the sermon probably for the first time as an 11-year-old. And so this church was really good at just presenting the gospel. And so when they asked if anybody wanted to raise your hand, and I did, and then this lady came and took me back and explained to me the gospel, and so I accepted Jesus. And then that next Sunday I was baptized. And honestly, I can say from 11 years old on, not that it was perfect. I went through, a lot of hard times, but I've never looked back. Like, I kind of have always had just a childlike faith. And so that faith at 11, if the Bible says it, I believe it, and I just go forward.
Awesome. Awesome.
Now, I was baptized in the same church, but the thing is at least they explained to her about all that stuff. The old deacon that came around to my brother and I know he had to be a close friend with Moses because that's how old he was. He threw us both robes and says, "You boys put on these robes." So my brother looked at me and I looked at him and he says, "Listen, you go around the corner," because he says, "I don't want to see you naked." And so I said, "Okay." So I took all my clothes off and I got into that. So when we got into that tank, the robes started to float, and we I had nothing underneath. And when that preacher dunked me, he dunked me, and that robe popped up, and the whole front of the church was a glass. You could see, and so that was my introduction to
Oh no.
Christianity. Nobody told me, but I was pretty naked in front of everybody. So
So that's what you call the first Mooney Baptist or baptism?
Yeah, yeah. So when did you
but here I am.
so when did faith become your own as you got older?
For me, about 19 years old. I went to the bluffs. Colorado has a lot of bluffs. If there's anybody from Colorado, they know in Pueblo, semi-arid. I just went and parked my car up there and I just prayed for hours and hours and hours. And I decided right then that that this faith is something that God gave me, and I was going to honor it, and I was going to make it mine, and I was going to do my best to follow Him. And so it was out in the middle of the prairie and dark, 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 but a beautiful, clear night with all those stars. And I don't know if you can understand it, but the moon was shining, and you could see. I can't see perfect, but you could see so much around you and the shadows and the light spots, and it was just beautiful. It was well, you're from
Yeah,
Arizona, so you probably know
the
how that
dark
feels
sky.
when you go out. Yeah, yeah. And so that was me.
Well, this might sound kind of silly, but at 12, I was walking home from school and it was snowing in Colorado. And in Pueblo, the big thing to do for teenage boys is to get their pickup truck and make ice balls and then find a little person who's walking and then just bombard them with these ice balls. And so as I was walking home, I saw this truck coming with a mound of ice balls and a bunch of teenage boys. But I was stubborn enough. It's like, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to hide. I'm just going to keep walking. But I prayed and I said, God, please protect me. I am so scared right now. And that truck came within a couple feet of me. And out of hundreds of ice balls, not one hit me.
Awesome.
And so that's where God became real. It's like, you know what? He heard my prayer and he answered it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Even in the little things.
Yep, exactly. Amen to that. So how did you two meet?
We met in high school. I was a wrestler in high school, and I had a wrestling coach who gave me a hall pass to get out of class. And literally, the hall pass said, "Come to my room and check out the girls," and he probably get fired for it. He tore it up after I got there, but I got permission from my English teacher, who was Mr. Peets, to come down and check out the girls, and she was in that class. And he thought I was a nice kid, and he really thought she was a lovely, which she was and is a lovely girl, and says, "I want you to. Your job is to get to know that girl and to take her out." And so that was the way we that was the commissioning for me to do it. But it was at a Sam and Ray's pizza parlor that I went and sat down by her, and we started talking, and that's how we met.
Yeah, and you have to understand, like, our school was big. It was a couple thousand
Wow.
kids. We had over 700 kids in our graduating class. He was a senior, I was a sophomore. And so it was big. And Rick was a Christian, I was a Christian, but we were kind of undercover. We didn't talk about
We
it.
weren't well trained
Yeah,
Christians.
we never went to youth group. We didn't really go to church that much. But we were good kids, but we didn't know anything. And so somehow that teacher figured out of the thousands of kids in that school that Rick needed to meet me. And so that's funny because a couple weeks ago, I saw on Facebook, and one of the questions from somebody from Pueblo, Colorado said, um, what was your favorite pizza place in Pueblo in high school? And the 100% was Salmon Ray's Pizza, because that's just where you went after any game was Salmon Ray's Pizza. So yeah, I was 15, he was 17.
Awesome. So, what brought you into missions? What was the triggering factor?
Well, we didn't. So we got married out of high school. Uh, she was 18, I was 20. Had our first kid when she was 20 and I was 22, and then Adam later on. And then we hadn't gone to college or anything like that. And so I kept asking her, you know, I'm thinking it would be good if I get an education, maybe go in ministry. And so anyway, over a period of time, that's what happened. At 10 years after high school, I went off to Phoenix, Arizona, and went to Southwestern Bible College, which is now Arizona Christian University, which is a great school, by the way. And if you want to send a kid somewhere, I'll get a plug for them. I usually send them there. Yeah. And anyway, so in there, Dr. Samor, in the first year, you had to take an evangelism and a missions class. And he had challenged us to think, I wanted to go home to my hometown and be a youth pastor. And he had challenged us, you should think about the world. Well, I didn't really think about it. And then I thought, well, you know what? I could try it, right? I could try and see if God could use us somewhere else. And so that's what happened. We went on a mission trip. We were in on the Roatan Island, but back in those days, it was not developed. It was very rural, and it wasn't a developed like it. If you go there now, there's like these resorts and stuff. It wasn't there, I promise you.
1983.
In 1983,
Wow.
those resorts weren't there. And so while we were there. We were gone 31 days,
Yep.
and we led.
31.
There was 31 people that came to the Lord.
Wow.
So when we got back to Bible college, we just kind of said, well, we'll keep that in the back of our mind. We went there. We had this wonderful opportunity, and so that's what opened up the doors for missions for us, I think, right?
It was actually, like Rick said, taking a missions class and then going. Uh, I never had a desire. When Rick presented that opportunity to me when he got home, I'm like, I don't really even believe in missions. I think we need it here in the United States, and the world isn't. It's too far away. But after a lot of prayer, we went, and I think that's what did it for us, is actually going and seeing that there's a world out there that needs Jesus, and we kind of we kind of saw our gifts in what God could use us in evangelism and just meeting people, and just relational, and we just had so many stories there. We still keep up a little bit with some of the people there, but I think for us it was the challenge of going on a missions trip. So that's why the last 20 years or so, we've taken hundreds of people here to Kenya, because we know how much it changed our lives in going. So
Yeah, and that was when I was a freshman, and so we had to go through Bible college still, and then off to seminary, and I never made it back to my hometown to be a youth pastor. But God has given me, I can't tell you how many thousands of youth that I've become involved in. Little kids, and training them and helping them and stuff like that.
So, So you got into, what made you decide to go with WorldVenture in 2000? And explain a little bit about your years of mission work prior to WorldVenture.
What I did prior to
Yeah.
WorldVenture?
We had no mission experience
Oh, I
before
thought you
WorldVenture.
had some. Okay, well, so
No, just that 30 days on
okay,
Roatan Island.
all right. So
Yeah.
what made you decide to go with WorldVenture?
We had looked at other mission agencies. We've read them. We looked at them and stuff. But going to Southwestern Conservative Baptist Bible College, which WorldVenture was part of that, right?
Yeah.
And we that was one that we were looking at. And then we, after looking at all of them, we just felt like that was the best one for us. But we also, at Dallas, we were friends with Barbie and Mark Bailey. Mark Bailey was the president of Dallas, and Barbie Bailey was the president of Charles and Elena. The daughter of Elena Green and Charles Green. They were missionaries in Argentina and then opened up a new field in Venezuela. And so they invited us, Barbie and Mark Bailey invited us to their house to meet their parents. And at that meeting, we really loved the Greens. They were so good and kind and humble, and we thought, oh, we could go work with them in Venezuela, and that's kind of launched us. But you may have more to add to that.
That's it. Yeah.
In fact, we hadn't really chose a place to work, but when we showed up at the headquarters, Charles Green had already told them their badge has to say Venezuela on it. So we got Venezuela badges. So we figured, okay, that's where we're going. And so he had already called it for us.
So his thing was, if you don't have a plan, he has a plan for
There
you.
you go.
And we weren't sure where
Yeah.
God wanted us, and he was sure God wanted us in Venezuela. And so
Yeah. He had arranged it as soon as we got there to the mission headquarters. We already had badges because other people had, appointees.
Yeah.
We had badges that said, appointees to Venezuela. So.
So just as a reminder to everyone out there, this is a two-way conversation. So feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. We'll be happy to engage with you in your conversations or the topics we bring up today. So what what did you do in Venezuela for the time you were there?
We worked in church planning, helping start churches, and we helped start really 3 different churches while we were there. 2 of them were Latino churches, and one was an international church. And so we were there 10 years, and worked in trying to develop those churches. One was turned over to a Latino pastor, and another one is it has been packaged because of the coup that went on there, because of Chavez, because can you still hear us with all the kids?
I can still hear you. It's
Good.
great.
And
here, we'll get a picture.
Awesome.
Wait,
Yay.
she's showing a picture real quick. Those are our little kids up here in the mountains. And so that's what we did. And so we worked there 10 years in just trying to do the best we can to help start churches.
Awesome. So do you still keep in contact with those former church plants?
The English church. Hey, how are you? Excuse me a second.
No worries. No worries.
So give me 1 second, Demon. Yeah. Just say neighbor coming to say hi.
Oh, nice.
There's Venezuela is a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the people that we ministered to there are in other parts of the world now. I don't know if anybody knows, but Chavez took over Venezuela, and it was pretty brutal on a lot of people, and the economy was next to nothing. So we have some of these people are in Spain, in South America, some in Florida, some here. But yes, we do hear from them.
Nice.
We sometimes on Facebook, sometimes through Messenger. They send us well wishes and stuff like that. but there's only two churches that were started by all of us. The Pastor Green's church, and then David Berkey is working on a church that we had helped with, but they had to rebrand that church because of Chavis and because of COVID and stuff. And David Berkey has done a great job in there, and he has a pastor that's going to take over from there. So Venezuela is one of those countries where we did a lot of good work, but because of the political stuff, it has been very hard for the churches.
But one thing that was so fun that we didn't even come up with, and everything that we talk about, it's we didn't do it. It was God who did it. We just kind of followed. So with this international church, at the end of the day, there were 28 countries that were represented in this international church. We started with 4 families and ended up with 28 different countries. And so the awesome thing was is these people would go back to their home countries, and then they were saved. So then they, lead people to the Lord there. So it was kind of just this worldwide thing that we didn't even think of, but God did. So we have friends from all over the world now.
Yeah, it was interesting. The international church, we really had a number of people, quite a few people, become believers in Jesus Christ, and were baptized there in that church.
And then there's a couple here on our team here in Kenya that were in our church in Venezuela.
So yeah.
And so that was like almost 30 years ago. So they're here in Kenya with us.
And
now.
the international church, all those people are really, they're all over the world, but we still hear from probably a quarter of those people from time to time. And there was probably close to 350 people in that church at one time. So yeah, it was an amazing. We're not sure how we did it, but we know that God did it, but we don't know how He did it with us. Is what I'm trying to say, because we don't have those kinds of skills and stuff. But you know what? You just do. You get in these situations and you just depend on God, the Holy Spirit, and He guides you.
And then there's also a man here, Daniel, and he's a missionary in Scotland. And he was just telling some of the team members that his church, which was our sending church in Arlington, Texas, and that when we were there at one time, we challenged people to go on the mission field. And because of that, he's now a missionary in Scotland.
With Greater European Missions.
But he's here with our team because he wanted to come for a couple weeks. So it just keeps going.
I love how God works.
Yeah, it's really good.
So you're really passionate about your different Children of Promise projects. But I'd like to know what inspired that you've had formerly. We got a question. So Sudip, he asked a question of how many years does it require you to develop the first church, and how did you start the process?
Well, in Venezuela, when we first got there was a church that was started, and we helped out with that church. And we worked in that church, helping develop it for about 4 years, and for us, it was so the 2 missionaries that started it was about 10 months old, maybe 12 months old when Diane and I took over that first church. So it needed a lot more growth, and so we just worked with the people constantly. We were out there. With a lot of the youth, because we knew that would be our future of the church, but really just going to the shops and talking to people, telling them about who we are and where we're going, and they didn't even hear the word Baptist, and that the church that we were in was a Baptist church, and so it was just one of those things that but it was a lot of training. We spent a lot of time. I mean, I can't tell you. We wore out tires on our car. And in fact, I wore out so many tires, somebody in the mission said, "How can he be wearing out that many tires?" And the lady that ran the funds for the mission in Venezuela says because he's always out there. Him and his wife are constantly out there doing the work. So part of the development of it is just being with the people. Even in this community here with Children of Promise, even here to answer that question, I can walk up this road and people know who I am because I've been in their houses, I've talked to them. So I think that's the key of trying to develop stuff is just be as much as you can in the community.
So the time was probably a couple years. The key, I think, is just being relational and just going in and just being with the people constantly.
And then with the other Spanish church so the English church that we started our second term and the Spanish church, it really came out of the English church because we had a lot of Latinos that were going there, and another couple of missionaries started to develop that where we continued in the English church and we worked together for a number of years doing that. But with the English church, it just took a lot of time working with all of these internationals, and I'm telling you, they were from all over the world, and some of them were so interesting to talk to. But spending time with them, we had every family that ever came through our church in our home for a dinner,
Awesome.
and we would pray for each person, during the week that came to our church, and we had hundreds of them, and we knew them by name, so we could greet them at the door by name. And then we did a lot of discipleship, evangelism, tons. I can't tell you all the stuff we did, but that's how we built it. We just kept working on those core things: evangelism, discipleship, outreach. And we had really good women's outreach, youth outreach, men's outreach, and so.
Awesome. So I hope that answered your question, Sudip. Feel free to ask further. So let's go back to the Children of Promise. What inspired this set of, now you have two projects because one you handed over to the Nationals. What inspired the name Children of Promise? What inspired these ministries? And can you tell us a little bit about each of them?
We left Venezuela in 2000, and we was wondering what we would do. We didn't know what we were going to do, but the mission gave us kind of a long list, and we'd worked with some people with the mission. They were interested in humanitarian stuff, and then also I wanted to see church planning, but also I've been very much of an entrepreneur, and Diana and I have worked together on all these things, so I might be a little more talking, but she's the one that kept. I might come up with all these crazy ideas, but she's the one that says, "Okay, wait a minute, how are we going to do this stuff?" And so we came to Kenya for the first time, and it was during a pandemic. It was the HIV/AIDS. That's how they described it.
2001.
In 2001, and literally wherever I went, there was grave after grave after grave after grave.
Yeah.
It was a serious situation here.
Yeah.
And so we thought, so they were asking me to check it out. How could we do here? What we do? And one of the things that we thought we could do is help with a child sponsorship, and then also develop a biblical-based church, school, and some type of economic plan. And so that's what we did.
The Children of Promise was just a name.
So the Children of Promise is the name we chose because I was reading in the scriptures. I wished I knew the exact passage, but it said, "Your children are promised." I said, "That's a good name." So that's how we chose it.
Awesome. All right. So tell me about briefly tell me about each of the Children's of Promise projects, including the one that you handed over to the Nationals. Give a brief description of each for our audience.
Well, the description here is we were helping a lot of HIV positive kids, and we actually partnered with another group in the beginning, but they left, and so it just left us by ourselves. So we turned over all then we started doing the sponsorship through the mission, and so it's really the purpose is so to give it an ability to help poor people I mean, we're talking very, very extreme poor. A lot of these people make $3 or $4 a day, and they needed a way to help their kids get good education. And so that's why we started it, to come down with, have a way that we could raise money, but not completely make them dependent on us. So even this here in Kenya, we still have a small sponsorship, but and we're willing to take other sponsors on if they want to do that, but that's not the bulk of the money. That they have to come up with their own way to really do a lot of this. So the reason why we started it is we saw so many kids. In fact, Kenya is about 85% youth. Is that not right? That's what we just heard.
Wow,
85% under, I can't remember what the age, but it's
that's a
mostly
large
young
number.
people. It's large. I don't know if that's right, but that's what the Kenyans have been telling us. And so this is ripe for us. And if we can invest in these kids, we're investing in the future. And we've had some success stories with some kids. In fact, I think tomorrow we're going to hear from a kid named Moses who has been very well through our program.
Well, and just today, just an hour before we came on here, we always take some of our team members on home visits,
Hmm.
and so because we just want them to see what most of the people live, what their story is, sit in their little one room, 8 by 6, living room, kitchen, and bedroom all together, and so I always ask with a prayer request, and 100% of the time it is just pray that we can somehow find funds for our child to go to school, because even the public school here costs money.
Wow.
And so it costs, they have to buy uniform, they have to buy their books, they have to buy administration fees. And so that's their number one. But all the mothers, of course, they're all single because the dads leave, and
Hmm.
so their work is they go out in the morning and they try and find just a casual labor job. Now it hasn't been raining for the last couple of days, so there's not a lot of work in the gardens, or some of them wash, but they make around 200 shillings a day, which is anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day, and that's $1.60. So
Oh,
that's for the day. And so that's not quite enough to even feed themselves or their children. Or just a couple years ago, when we had a ladies' uh, thing going on here, and we went into small groups, and one of the prayer requests of one of the mothers was pray that she can find someone to prostitute herself to, so that she can get enough money to feed her kids
oh
for
man.
that next day. So it's tough. So why do we do Children of Promise? Because we see that education is everything here in this country, and our school is a Christian school, and the team members are just amazed at how many books of the Bible these kids know by heart, and how
Wow.
smart they are in the Bible, and how many just the Christian values that and so polite and so respectful and so kind. And so it's been amazing that this whole village has kind of been transformed, and the school is and the church are the hub. So.
And so just to ken you a little short, but also then about a year later we started in Romania, and everywhere we went to orphanage after orphanage and place after place, and we just worked with these two brothers. Just to let you know, everybody we worked with was vetted by somebody, usually from WorldVenture. Hey Rick, you should go help this guy because I think you and Dinah have some gifts that you could help him go a little bit further. And so we went to Romania, and it was a smaller project there. It was a home, and I know that everybody hates orphan homes or projects like that, but there's a lot of good. I know there's a lot of bad press out there, but there's a lot of good homes that take care of a lot of kids, and they do a great job. And so we helped this home, and we also ended up starting. Helping them start 6 churches while we were there in Romania. Now, I didn't start them, but we facilitated a lot of the stuff that would happen. Just like here in Kenya, at one time we helped facilitate the starting of 10 churches. And so then we had a year later after that or so, we started the work in Myanmar, which came through Dave Whedon, one of the vice presidents of WorldVenture at that time. And he says, I think they send me places that nobody else wants to go. That's what I think. So
Well, you're
we
good at what
showed up
you
there.
do. So,
We showed up there, and it was when the military, and we have to be real careful what we say, but the military was in charge, so you had to get permission to go everywhere. And so we did most of our stuff at nighttime, and yet we really built you know a partnership. And whether it was in Romania, and we still talk to the Romanians all the time, and they just wished me a happy birthday not too long ago. We talked to the people in Venezuela, the Kenyans we talk to all the time. And then here, the partnership we built has been such a beautiful partnership because, you know, and it's been hard because we've lost great people there. Over 450 pastors have died there in the last few years. One of my best friends, we were twins, even though we didn't look alike or anything else. We had such a great. His name was Paul, and we just really just clicked in everything that we did together. He passed away because of COVID and because he had some ailments and stuff, but his brother has become part of our mission, and he is a. I want to say the right word. I don't want to say global specialist, but he's a
Partner.
global partner or something like that. I forget now, but anyway, we they're still going strong there, and we have two schools now there and two homes, and uh, and we've helped facilitate. So we're not like in Venezuela starting stuff. We're now uh, help them go further, and that's what we've been doing for the last 22, 23 years is helping people go further than maybe they could.
awesome. Awesome. So, why is it important for nationals to eventually run these ministries? Is there kind of a theology behind it, or?
Well, Dinah said something really good. There is, uh, if you travel around Kenya, you can see old facilities that were ran by Europeans or Americans, people from the outside, but nobody ever took ownership of it. We just showed you pictures of our facility. Does it look run down?
No, it looks
They've
great.
taken ownership of it. And so it's important for them. Okay, we still partner with them. So the idea of partnership is that, the Kenyans have helped us in Myanmar. They have sent money to help our project in Myanmar, even though there's so many people in need here, because it's a partnership. And so we try to work together the best we can to complement each other. And so it's important for them to take over where they're not. I'm not the boss man. I'm their partner. We're working together. In fact, I'm taking directions from a young man here today, and so he's telling me what to do, which is fine. But that's the way it should be. So it's very important for them because if they don't take ownership of it, you can. I'm telling you, you can travel around the world and in Africa or in other parts of the world, and you say, I wonder why that church is all run down and nobody has anything to do with it, or
All right, sorry everyone. It is being streamed from Kenya, so we're getting them
uh,
back just right now. There we go.
okay, good. So if people don't take over partnership, it's just going to be buildings left there with nobody in them.
And just like with COVID, you know, we every project that we started, whether it's in Kenya, Romania, Myanmar, whatever, the idea was always to turn everything over to the nationals eventually. And praise the Lord, we had that thinking from the Lord and the concept, because when COVID hit, if we would have been the only ones that, if nothing got done unless we were here, or but instead of, we did just the opposite. And we always said from the beginning, that, you know what, this isn't ours, this is God's, and eventually this is going to be yours. And in 2019, we had a big celebration, and these two land properties that we bought out here in Kenya was, you know, cheap. One was 28,000, one was 32,000, and now they're worth $3 or $4 million. And so you
Wow.
had to be really careful who you partner with, and that's another whole story for another time. How we found our partner, but we've always been, you know, just in Myanmar, same thing. It's like we're partners and this is yours, but we want to work together. So it
and,
works.
and, and we've accomplished much more. And the thing is like Diana says, if it wasn't for God using our skills and partnering with other people, I really feel like I've worked with people much smarter than me, have more capabilities than I have, and I've just been blessed to be in the right place with these wonderful people, because
Awesome.
I that's just how I feel about it. Yeah.
Awesome. So, how have you just share one or two stories, but how have you seen God at work at these ministries? What are the stories that are close to your heart?
Have one?
There's so many. Just about 30 minutes ago, we went to go pick up a man named James that we started with here 20 years ago. And he started as the headmaster. And he retired a couple years ago, but and he was in a terrible accident, car accident, just a couple months ago, and broke his legs, and it was just terrible. There were people killed and all that, but um, you know, our story with him is he's been our friend for 20 years, and he just is so grateful um, just to come back. And he hasn't been on campus for a couple years, but just to come back and just see, you know, that it's continuing, that what he started along with us is still going, and he just praises the Lord for that. And so, you know, we're sitting here right here in Kenya, just being involved in. The other story is the young guy from Dallas, Texas. He called a year ago, and he's like, I want to lead a team to Kenya because I've retired from bringing teams. You know,
Mhm.
nobody died under my watch, and I didn't lose anybody, and so I felt really blessed, and so I'm kind of done. But he's like, but I'll only do it if you and Rick come and, you know, assist me. And so we're like, you know what, we will do it. And so that's what we're doing here is assisting Jared, and 14 of us are here. So there's just story after story that it's just amazing what God is doing and continues to do, and how many people are so faithful to Him. So, what's
Yeah.
your
Yeah. You know, I think a general theme story all the way through it is just to see how many people have truly over the years put their faith in Jesus, and that's what it's all about. Because we say that we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Like nobody comes to the Father except through Him. And so, if we're helping with the children, or we're doing this or that, or economic plans or whatever, if it doesn't lead them to that saving knowledge of Jesus, what does it matter? Because
Yep.
we know the truth, and I hope this isn't offensive to anybody. But if it is, you need to read your Bible. We know that there's a heaven and there's a hell, and
Yep.
we know that those people that put their faith firmly in Jesus Christ and trust Him for their salvation, repent and turn from their sins and say, Jesus, I want you in my life because I can't make it. I'm not good enough. There's nothing I can do. I'm a sinner. I guarantee you, the minute that you put your faith in Jesus, there's a transformation from the inside out. You may not feel it right away, but eventually God, the Holy Spirit, is talking to you about stuff. Hey, should you not be following me and not follow that, but follow me? And you can see that. You can see that. So I'll tell you just a little story of a guy in Myanmar who went to one of our homes. He didn't want to be there. He only wanted his own language. He didn't want to learn all the other tribal language in the home. He had to learn Burmese, plus he had his own language. Then he had to learn English, and then there's other tribal people there that he had to learn. And just disgruntled, but he became a believer in that home. Not by our hands. We're helping facilitate that. And really, WorldVenture, people have prayed for these people. People have given to these people. So it's not just us, Diana and I. It's God who has done it through us, through all these partners that are tremendously wrapped around the world, right? And so at the end of the day, not only does he become a believer, he finishes high school with high marks, goes off to Bible college and gets great marks. He gets a scholarship to go to a seminary in Texas. Not
Wow.
only does he come back from Texas, his expertise is in Hebrew and Greek. So he translates all our books. He
Nice.
does all kinds of translation using the original languages. So here's a kid didn't want anything to do with languages, who are now a young man with two children, and I've known him since he's a little kid, translating from using the original language to help translate Bible into other languages and stuff right there in Yangon. Is that tremendous or what? Who
That is
could ever think
amazing.
of that except for God? And so
God
we
sees
we've been a
God sees
part
our
of it.
potential.
Yeah, we've been a part of it. But we haven't been the A, B, C, D. We've just been the catalyst in getting a lot of this stuff and helping a lot of different people.
Awesome. So on the dark side though, what has broken your heart in these ministries?
Uh, you know, I had a friend die. I told you about that, Paul.
Yes.
That hurts, but it was only. Wait a minute. Are you? Oh, you were seeing our pictures. It's behind here. Are you hearing us? Because
Yes, I'm
we're
hearing you.
behind. Okay,
Yeah.
we won't look at our I see Diana talking. I'm talking, but it's her. Anyway, now I'm off sync. So, like I say, I was brokenhearted in that. But you know what really makes me sad is to
Mhm.
see how many people reject the gospel, and know people that some come all the way to the point of salvation, but then turn their back on it.
Mm.
And we've had that happen in Venezuela. We've had it happen in Romania. We've had it happen here. We've had it happen in Myanmar. It's not new either, because Paul writes about it, and he says, he's had friends turn against him, and friends turn against the scriptures that they taught him, and so it's part of the package, is that you pour your life into people, and everybody's struggling and trying to help people come further in understanding of Jesus, and all about the Bible, but then just for them to fall away, that breaks my heart more than
Yeah.
anything else. Paul, I'll see again. In fact, when I get to heaven, my hope is Jesus will be there, and he'll say, "Hey, I've been waiting for you. Come on in, you good and faithful servant." Right? And he gives me an embrace. But then there'll be Paul, and there'll be these other people that I know, and I'll be able to hug and talk to them for eternity. And so that doesn't break my heart as much as these other people that
Yeah.
I know won't be there with me, but they had clear evidence of who Jesus was.
Yeah, that is heartbreaking. So, can you share some prayer requests for the audience? And remember, you can talk to us. You can put stuff in the chat, ask us questions, or make comments on the topics we bring up. Before we move into the suggest for our topics for that are coming up, what are some prayer requests that you have that people can be praying for your Children of Promise homes, your different projects, past and present?
You know, because of COVID, and I know COVID is like the scapegoat for everybody, but here there was no safety net for the people here. When they were out of jobs, it was bad. So
Yeah.
we're hoping that we can help them a little bit more in the child sponsorship. Pray that God will bring people. We don't have a page. We don't advertise it. We just have our little page there at the mission. We're not advertising it around the world or anything like that. But we're hoping that we can bring on a few more to help them. That would be the prayer request here, to help some kids that really need it. Second, in Myanmar, that's really, these are the two projects that we're still helping a little bit with. Is the one in Myanmar. We're praying that that there would be stability in the country. And so far, all of our workers have been, you know, they've been in, they've been okay. Nothing
Good.
as, you know, they're continuing to do their work and stuff. And we pray that the military and the people there will realize we're not we're not we're not political. All we want to do is talk about Jesus. And Jesus loves everybody in that military, and he loves the people on the other side. We just want everybody to know that we want to see people come to the Lord, and we don't want to we don't want to we don't be involved in all that other kind of stuff. But I pray that also that Timothy, the guy that I work with, our partner there, that his support would go up. He's not completely supported yet, and he's the one that's really taken my place there in the future. And I told him, we told him that we would work with him for the next couple of years. So that those are two major prayer things. Timothy would raise his support. There would be the stability there, because we plan to go back into Myanmar in January, and that'll be our first time in a couple of years. And then that we would raise a little more sponsorship funds here.
Perfect. Yeah. And I put the links in the chat for all the stuff that he's talking about so you can see it, including Timothy. So you can see all the different information and videos as well. So if you don't have any other questions regarding the Children of Promise home out there, and you can still put it in there, so don't worry, you're not interrupting anything. Let's talk about what's been going on in WorldVenture past. So in the Asian region, in the Philippines, David and Kenda Jerome, they basically are very, very training churches to be more evangelistic. The Philippines is has a very large Christian population. But what are some of the difficulties in your experiences have you found in sharing the gospel in the different countries you've been in? Can you hear me?
Is that a question for us?
That's a question for you.
Well, here in Kenya, matter of fact, I've already shared the gospel quite a bit since I've been here, and I really have. And so here in Kenya, it's much more open. It's harder. It's harder in some of the countries I go to because we're not fluent in all these languages. Even here, I'm not fluent in all the language here, but the basic there's a bridge that people speak English here, and so that's not it's not so difficult here. But in other countries, whether it was Romania or Myanmar, to to speak about Jesus, a lot of times you had to do a translator. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but the most difficult thing uh, that we have to do when we're in another country is depend on people to translate for us. If we're speaking about
Yeah.
Jesus or if we're doing those things. Uh, I'm not sure if that answered your
No,
question, but that would be the most difficult thing for us.
yeah. So basically, when we talk about, trying to break through with the gospel through the different religions and beliefs, especially in Africa, we have the Benesa family who just recently shared a story where a young woman they've been praying for came to one of their gatherings, and I guess according to their culture being Muslim, that basically if they have a spiritual conversation, they feel guilty about having such conversation because it goes against Islamic teaching, and they were taught that God could punish them for this. So the person who came back to our worker there was able to have a spiritual conversation, which was purely a God thing. So in light of that, when you've talked to people of different religions, besides the language, was there any barriers that you saw God overcome that helped you overcome them so you can share it?
Yeah, you do. Uh, in fact, I was just witnessing to a Muslim here, and it's difficult, but you don't you want to be sure not to be critical of of their religion, of their beliefs, or anything like that, but present the great positive sides of Jesus. And the same thing in Buddhism. We never talk about Buddhism negatively. In fact, we don't have to, because when you talk about Jesus, it's very positive, what Jesus has done. And people want to respond to it, but like you say, whether it is Islam or whether it is Buddhism, if they surrender to Christ, they'll lose everything. They'll lose their families, and we know people that has happened to.
Mm.
And whether it's here or whether it's in Myanmar, you lose your families. They won't talk to you because you've given up on their religion, and it's difficult. And that's why it makes it difficult to witness there. They love they love the message, but it's hard for them to change, because they know if they do, their family their family will reject them.
Yeah, that is a hard one. So if anyone has any questions about anything, topics we brought up, about Jesus, about anything, about the Children of Promise homes, we've got a minute left before we wrap up. Feel free to put them in the chat. Doesn't look like there is anything, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Rick and Diana, stay on for a few minutes. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for answering those questions and sharing about that. We want to give to Children of Promise. Again, the links are in the comments. Feel free to click on that to learn more. There's some recent videos uploaded to it. And feel free to, if you feel led, go ahead and give. It is tax deductible. So thank you for joining us, Rick and Diana. Please do stay on. And everyone, if you still have questions and it's long past when we are live, I will make sure Rick and Diana get your questions so you can get them answered. Thank you.